Might get started. Welcome, Vickie. Thanks for coming and joining our Aussie virtual camp. I'll let you
Yeah, how
take over.
exciting. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Everyone can mute themselves and while Vickie's chatting. That'd be great.
Awesome. We're really going to struggle going back to normal life. Like when we have face-to-face meetings and you can't mute people. Yeah, I think we're sort of getting really a different reality at the moment, which is yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. That's my word at the moment. Everything's a bit interesting and different. And you know, the fact that we're all able to get together, even though we're all around the country, I just think it's fantastic. And yeah, thank you so much to Jules for organising this. And actually, Ronnie and I were in touch, God, close to 2 years ago, sort of getting the ball rolling with this. So it's really nice to now be able to, you know, have this session with you guys and to be able to start contributing to your journey as athletes, and you know, specifically around sponsorship, which is something I'm really, really passionate about and have been involved in for many years. Over the last 6 years, me and my company have had the pleasure of working with organisations like the US Olympic Committee and Paralympic Committee, Sport England. We run a national program with the Australian Institute of Sport. There's a whole heap of other sports organisations that we work with, and then also with professional teams and the AFL and NRL. So we really work, I guess, in all aspects of athlete pathway. We also work on the other side. We work with businesses who sponsor athletes. We work with businesses who sponsor sports organisations. And we work with not-for-profits who like to get involved in campaigns that involve sport or involve athletes. So if you're looking for, you know, someone who's got, I guess, that more global perspective, you found yourself, I guess, in the right hands, because what we teach is not just how to go and get sponsored. It's about how to make this bigger than just sponsorship, bigger than just getting something for free or getting your costs covered. This can be everything and anything that you want it to be. If you're wanting to pursue a career or travel the world or grow a profile for yourself, those are just some of the ways that sponsorship can support you as athletes. And the other thing I think that's really important, I think it's crucial, is the value exchange. So the fact that we work in business, in industry, with government, with sports organisations, with small and big businesses, I'm able to share with you the things that businesses actually want from athletes, the things that are actually going to be valuable and that they're going to make you stand out from other athletes that are seeking sponsorship, and that you're going to be able to go in with a different approach, which ultimately is going to give you better results. Gone are the days of sending out a generic PDF to loads and loads of businesses, hoping that one of them is going to come back to you and say, yeah, we'd love to donate something to you. That dynamic of asking for a handout and getting something back and just being grateful and wearing a logo, it doesn't, you know, that's not what sponsorship has become. It's become a lot more mutually beneficial. It's become, in a way, more mature, but also more simple, because businesses are now interested in you as people. They're interested in getting involved in what you're involved in your life, in your sport, on social media, getting you involved in their business, social media, at events that they host with clients, with their customers. It's more real. So it's broken down that barrier that used to exist and doesn't now, which is you need to be famous, you need to have an audience, you need to be able to sell stuff. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today is dispelling some myths. But yeah, I wanted to give you that mindset. You know, this is going to be different to probably a lot of stuff you've heard about sponsorship. Some of it will be really familiar, and hopefully all of it just makes sense, because it's not rocket science. If at any point you've got questions, just maybe pop them in the chat and I'll try to get to them. So before we begin, I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land where we're meeting all around Australia, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So for those of you who haven't had a quick look at the video that we sent through earlier this week, this is what our program is going to look like together. So we've got the session today, which is an hour. We've got a session next week, which is an hour. And then in a couple of weeks after that, we're going to have a final session, which is Q&A. So until then, it's super structured. There's step-by-step stuff that we're going to go through. But that final Q&A session, we're going to meet you where you are. So hopefully some of you will, after next week's session, go, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to give this a crack. I'm going to use the resources. I'm going to follow the process. I'm going to go out and approach some businesses. And or at least begin exploring the idea of sponsorship for yourself. And so in that Q&A session, you're going to be able to come and ask specific questions about what you're thinking about, what you're, looking at doing, and we'll be able to answer those questions and kind of workshop through it together. Today, in the first webinar, we're going to look at how you can identify what you want from sponsorship and which businesses could be your sponsors. And why, like what the logic is for approaching those businesses. Then you've got a couple of challenges, so homework activities to do, which are super simple, and I'll show you them at the end of the session. And then next week, we're going to look at what the steps are to approach a business about sponsorship and how to create a pitch. So how to offer them something that they want, that's valuable, that you're able to deliver, and that you're going to get great value back from. So we want to make these relationships meaningful and purposeful and valuable and enjoyable. You can have it all. It doesn't have to just be something where you're selling your soul to the devil for a free t-shirt. This is about creating relationships that are going to enhance and add to and support your journey as an athlete. So essentially, we've got 2 hours of working together and going through this process before the Q&A session. And today we're going to look at the benefits of being sponsored. So why would you want to get sponsored? I know some of you have already got sponsorship, and that's awesome. You're already coming in with some knowledge and experience and also some confidence and awareness that, yeah, you can get sponsored. Some of you may be on the fence. You might think, well, I don't really need sponsorship. I've got enough money, or, you might have other reservations. We'll get into those a bit later. So if you can look at what you can get from sponsorship, it's going to help you keep going through this journey with a bit more, awareness and confidence and excitement. So whether you're brand new to it or you've got experience, you're going to be able to take this information and process it relevant to where you're at on your journey. I think it's really important to share about other athletes who've gone on this journey with us and achieved awesome things and are living the kind of lives that they want to live in all aspects. So in their sport, in their personal life, in their professional life. We'll look at some creative sponsorship ideas. As I said, that value exchange, the things that you can offer to a business that are beneficial to that business, that's going to be the game changer. And I think if there was one thing that I love the most out of this journey, it's finding out the unique value that each of you have that you can offer a business. Because so many athletes doubt themselves and they think, I don't have anything. I don't have a qualification, or I'm not super famous and I don't have 1 million followers on social. And when they start to see that they've actually got something really valuable to offer that's different to the other athletes around them, that is just beautiful. And I love that. So, and I think that's something that I'm pretty good at, is helping you guys unpack that. So yeah, it's a part that I really get excited about. Then based on what you might be looking for from sponsorship and what kind of stuff you could offer, and putting that together, then that's going to help you choose the right businesses to approach. So identify potential sponsors. So we'll look at that today as well. The next session, that second hour that we've got together, we're going to be looking at what the steps are to approaching a sponsor. And then how to make yourself irresistible so that you're offering the right thing in the right way at the right time. And then how to negotiate an agreement. So how to get to the point where you've had a conversation, you've had a meeting, you've offered them something, you've had a chat. Now, how do we make that actually a formal arrangement to move forwards with? So your first activity that you're going to do after today's webinar is you're going to have a look at a list and I'll show you it at the end of the session, a list of all of the things that you might want from sponsorship. And those items, those potential benefits that you can get from being sponsored fit into these categories. So obviously there's your sport. You know, it can allow you to use the products and services that are really good for your sport. It can save you money. It can allow you to participate in your sport more often, to the level that you want to, the frequency, and even traveling. So allowing you to really immerse yourself in your sport and be able to really give your all to it. It might mean that you can just do your sport and not have to work, if that's what you want. It can help with personal growth. So being sponsored can give you so much confidence. I know a lot of athletes, when they get sponsored, they know that they're representing more than just themselves when they're out there competing. And rather than feeling pressured by that, they feel a sense of team beyond the team that they have in their sport. You know, it's a bigger level of support. And it can also help you mature some of your, you know, professional skills, your communication skills, negotiating, obviously, speaking to people in the business world. So it can really help with that personal and professional development. You might find that sponsorship is a great vehicle towards a career, whether that's a career that you want to pursue outside of your sport or within your sport. You might want to become a coach, or you might want to become a lawyer or a graphic designer. You can use sponsorship as a way of getting experience or growing a network, or you know, showcasing your skills and developing your skills through what you do with your sponsors. If you're someone who's wanting to grow your profile, if you're someone who would like to be famous, or you believe that by growing your profile, more people will become aware of the things that are important to you. You might have a message that you want to carry about caring for the environment, or Indigenous rights. So growing your profile gives you that ability to carry a message, to be influential, to, again, increase your network and connect with opportunities and people. Being sponsored can help with your education. You might want to learn skills, gain work experience. You might want to become you know, an expert in a particular field. And by being sponsored by a company in that field, you get that experience and you get to see what it's like and be part of that. So it's really up to you what you get out of being sponsored. You know, the most obvious thing is free stuff, right? That's the narrative that we hear all the time. That sponsored athlete gets free stuff, or that sponsored athlete gets paid cash. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. But there's more. And so if you are someone who's maybe not chasing dollars from sponsorship, what else is important in your life? Because I would challenge you or encourage you to consider that any ambition you have, any need you have, any aspiration or, you know, vision that you have, you could achieve that through sponsorship. Because sponsorship is a relationship between you and an organization. It could be a business, it could be a charity or a not-for-profit. It could be a media agency. It could be a tourism board. So sponsorship isn't just a transaction of you wearing a logo and someone giving you money or product. It's much more than that, and it's what you want it to be. So the more aware you are of how these relationships can look, then you're able to be more selective, be more focused on what you want, and also think outside the square. And when you start to think like this, which some of you may already do, but when you start to think about sponsorship like this, then it tells us that there's an abundance of opportunities, because you're not all looking for the same thing from the same companies. You're not all going to the, you know, equipment company and asking for parachutes in return for making social media posts. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's fine too. But if everybody's asking for the same thing from the same people, then there is a limit. But when you start thinking differently and looking outside the square, then we connect with abundance. So I'm going to go through some stories and just share a little bit about some athletes in different sports, because I think that's important. You guys, obviously you have different disciplines within your sport. but it's the same sport essentially. But try to look for the similarities, not the differences. So don't worry about what sport they do. Listen to their stories and who they are and what they're doing. So I'm going to very lightly go through who they are, who they're sponsored by. And then in the next section of the presentation, we'll have a look at why they're sponsored by those businesses and the kind of things that they're offering back to make them valuable. So Oscar Baines is a runner from New Zealand. He's just recently started doing marathons and won the Auckland Marathon, his first one. But before that, he really didn't have a huge profile, definitely not outside of New Zealand. When he was 16, his grandma took him to the local running shop down in Wanaka, which is in the South Island. And she took him because his mum and his dad were not really around and were having their own challenges in life. The people at the running store knew a bit about that. It's a small community. And they said, tell you what, we'll give you the shoes for free. And he was so grateful. He posted on Facebook, he told his friends, people went back into the shop and said, oh, that's really nice that you gave Oscar shoes. And, they got new customers from it. And he went back to the shop anyway. Long story short, he got sponsored by them and they started giving him all his shoes for free. And he was so good at promoting them in a really authentic way. And online, offline, in conversations, going in and helping in the shop, organizing a local running group to start at the shop, a great way of promoting them, making them really connected with the community. And so after a couple of years, they actually encouraged some of their other suppliers to sponsor Oscar. So it was a running shoe company and a nutrition company. So by the age of 21, he had 3 sponsors, which was the shop, which he then worked for. They gave him a job. And he was given a car and a salary and product from one of those sponsors, and also I think a small salary from another one. So at the age of 21, he was able to run most of the time and work a couple of hours at the shop each week. From there, he actually became responsible for managing all of the sponsored athletes of all of their stores around New Zealand. His sponsorship increased and increased with the 3 sponsors he had. He never got more sponsors. He stuck with the 3 and grew his value to them and the value they gave back to him. He recently bought the shop that first sponsored him. He's now 27 years old, and he has been probably one of the most successful athletes that I know, because what he's been able to do is live the life that he wants through sponsorship. So he's not earning millions and millions of dollars, but he's earning enough to have been able to create the life that he wants. He's a dad and he's still running full time and competing at a really high level. The great thing about Oscar is he's been really true to himself the whole time. He hasn't become something else. He hasn't tried to get a million social followers. He's been very connected on the ground and also really helpful with his sponsors in terms of being involved in what they do in their marketing, creating content with them, helping them plan it, speaking at events for them, being an MC at their races and things that they sponsor. It's a really nice grassroots story. Squash Falconer is just the coolest woman in the world, and I just admire her so much. We met at a conference in Germany and she asked me to help her with her sponsorship and with her brand. She, as you can see, is wrapped in a parachute. She does these crazy adventures. Like I think she rode a motorbike up Mount Blanc, then parachuted off it. She's summited Mount Everest. She's always looking for really interesting adventures to do and to take her sponsors along on the journey with her. Her main sponsors are a portable off-grid power company, so it's a power supply that she can take with her wherever she goes. A local tourism group that she works with in the town that she lives in France, and an outdoor clothing and equipment company. So pretty logical sponsors. So I went into Oscar's story a fair bit because I think it's quite a different one, but with Squash, it's fairly straightforward at this point. So Alex Wood is a young guy from New Zealand. When I first started working with him, he said, I don't think I'm going to get sponsored. And I said, oh, why is that? And he goes, oh, because I don't like social media. I said, that's okay. And he goes, oh, and I'm not really, I'm not like, what did he say? Like a cool guy. And I'm like, that's okay, mate. That's fine. Tell me about you. Like, don't give me all the reasons that you can't get sponsored. Let's have a chat. And he said, oh, I don't know. I'm a bit different. You know, I go to TAFE. I'm doing trades. I love my sport of javelin. And yeah, that's kind of it. He goes, but I just can't afford to do my sport the way that I'd like to, because it's really expensive, and I'm paying to go to uni or to TAFE at the moment. He's now sponsored by his TAFE, and I'll explain that a little bit later. So Jess Gallagher is a Paralympian. I haven't put her sport because she changes her sports fairly frequently. She's incredible. I think she used to be an athlete when she was a teenager, and then her vision started going. She has a degenerative vision condition. And when she was cycling to training, when she was about 20, she realized that her vision was going, and it got worse from there. She then had to start getting taxis to training, well, as often as she could afford it. And on the days that she couldn't afford it, she would ride her bike still along a very busy road. If anybody knows the Geelong Road in Melbourne, it's a busy road. And the taxi driver that she got one day said, oh, do you only train a couple of times a week? That's not much for a Paralympian. And she said, oh, no, I train 6 days. And he said, oh, why don't you get taxis? And she said, I can't afford it. And he said, well, I think we can do something about that. So she's now sponsored by 13 Cabs. Again, there's a story behind that, but it makes sense. It's a beautiful, simple relationship that makes so much sense. Then there's Jupp Brown. Jupp Brown is one of my favorite people in the world. His mission in life is to make people smile, and genuinely so. You know, not by telling jokes, just by being a good person and making people happy. He's run around Japan. He's run the length of New Zealand. He's run across America. And he always does it for charity, and he stops at schools and does talks, and he is a sponsor hoarder. We had to do a big overhaul when we started working together because he had too many sponsors. He had like 35. He gets approached by businesses all the time to sponsor him because he's just this amazing guy doing great stuff. He doesn't have a huge social following, but the content he puts out is so good, and he's really good at working with businesses, helping them create content that they're going to be able to use. And his main sponsors are a Japanese mattress company, a sock company, and a plumbing business. So yeah, not your typical sponsors. So for some of you, for many of you, there will be things that are in the back of your mind or in the front of your mind around sponsorship and what it means to you or what it could mean to you. And some of those things might be true. Some of those things might be myths. So let's have a look at some of the common myths that athletes have when it comes to sponsorship. Myth 1, I don't have a huge social media following, so I can't get sponsored, or I'm not going to get much sponsorship. When we think about all of the things that an athlete can offer to a business, social media is part of it. Social media content that you put out is part of it. Social media content that you can provide to a business is another part of it. And another part is your audience. So how many people follow you? Maybe you've got millions, maybe you don't. The reality is that each one of you has so much more than your social media audience to offer a sponsor. And we'll go through that in a bit more detail this week and next week. But don't worry if you don't have a huge social media following. This athlete, Alex Wood, doesn't do social media, and he has a fantastic sponsor with TAFE, and I'll explain how that works for him. You have so many other skills and abilities and ways of working with and giving back to sponsors. So don't worry if you don't have heaps of social media followers, or even if you're not very active on social media. There's another myth that there's not enough sponsorship around and that it's hard to get, particularly now. I mean, we're in the middle of a global crisis. Who wants to go and ask for sponsorship? You know, there's this mindset and a belief, and in some cases it's going to be true, the businesses don't want to spend money or they don't have it. At the moment, it may be a little tricky. You may want to wait a little while, or you might want to just start making relationships, start the process anyway, and just look that, maybe in the future, those sponsorships are going to be bigger. Now they might be a little bit smaller because businesses might be a bit more careful with their spending. But businesses are still operating. There are a lot of businesses still wanting to market their products and be engaged with their customers and be relevant and active in their local communities. So there are still going to be so many sponsorship opportunities. And it's really not that hard to get. This process that we're going to be going through, you'll see that it's not just about, throwing your hat in the ring and hoping that somebody likes you. It's about doing a bit of work beforehand and identifying what you want, what you can offer, who you can offer it to, why that makes sense, and going in with an offer rather than a request. And that will make all the difference. When you approach a business with an offer as opposed to asking for a handout, you've already shifted the dynamic and you've shown them that you're smart, that you're switched on, that you care about them, that you understand them, that you're going to be easy to work with, you're going to be fun to work with. You're demonstrating so much through the approach that you make to them. This one, that you haven't achieved enough in your sport. I remember going to speak at the conference in America after the Rio Olympics with all of the Paralympic and Olympic athletes. And I said to them, who's sponsored, who's not, why aren't you sponsored? And they had all these reasons. And one of them was, I haven't achieved enough in my sport. And I said, didn't you just go to Rio? Didn't you just compete in the Olympics? And they're like, yeah, but I'm not ranked. I only came 5th. It's like, okay, so when will you get sponsored? When will the sponsors come running? And they all debated, when you get a gold medal, when you get a bronze medal. And I said, maybe they will, maybe they won't, especially if you're in a sport like javelin. Sponsors aren't flocking to javelin runners. They're not flocking to many, but some do experience that. The reality is your level of sport has very little to do with your ability to get sponsored. With some businesses, it may have an impact. If it's a sport specific company, they may just want the top 2 or 3. But as I said before, we're not just looking at sport specific companies, we're looking way outside the square. So your story, your personality, your values, your activities in and out of your sport, your skills, all of that stuff is going to play such a big part. The fact that you do a really cool sport helps. Let's say you get sponsored by an accounting firm, they're not that bothered whether you're ranked 2nd or 5th or 7th or 21st. They're so stoked that you jump out of a plane and you like it and you do it more than once. And, there's your story that's your value. So if any of these things are resonating with you, maybe I haven't given you evidence yet that they're not true, but start to be open to the idea that these myths are, going to be dispelled and that they're not going to hold you back from getting sponsored. If you don't fit the mold, you're a little different, you're a little out there, awesome. Own it, love it, embrace it. That will be one of your greatest assets. Your quirkiness, your differentness. That's cool. That's why Jupp is literally, like I said, a sponsorship hoarder. He's getting better now. He's learning to say no. But yeah, don't be scared that if you don't fit the mold, whatever that means in your life, that will be valuable for you. That's cool. It sets you apart from others. And what it does, I'll go into this myth and then I'll explain it. You have a disability or an issue that you think will stop you getting sponsored. There's something that in your heart, it's a bit of a block for you. Maybe you've got a stutter. Maybe you get really anxious, like I do when I think about skydiving. You get sweaty palms when you think about public speaking or, representing a sponsor at an event. That's okay. All those things you can get over. The thing with having a disability or having something that you think holds you back, that makes you different, that makes you not enough, that makes you, less valuable to a sponsor, it's the exact opposite. So all those things that you think narrow your opportunities, narrow down your chance of getting sponsored, actually what they do is they narrow your focus. They shine a light on the pathway to the right sponsors, offering them right things, offering them your unique, amazing self. And they put into the dark, into the sidelines, all the stuff that's not relevant to you. Because like I said, there is an abundance of sponsorship out there. There's an abundance of businesses and opportunities. That's not helpful. That's overwhelming. Where do you start? So by looking at yourself and what's different and unique and special and, amazing about you, then you get to focus and approach the right businesses in the right way with the right offer. And it's going to be different to everyone around you. So from now on, everyone that's in this group, you're not competing with each other at all. You're going to be looking for different sponsors offering different things, and you can support each other through this journey. You can help give each other ideas because you're not going to be going for the same sponsors. So, and even if you are, you're going to be offering different things. So Oscar Baines, our running friend from New Zealand, he's also a qualified chef, and he's a dad. He's a great runner. But his point of difference with his sponsors is he doesn't just talk about running. He talks about nutrition for runners. What kind of meals does he eat? People are so, I don't know if it's the same in your sport, but they're always interested to know what the elite are eating. And for Oscar, it's pretty much normal food. So he shares recipes online. He shares videos of him cooking with his family at home. And he's able to do presentations at running events or business events or healthy well-being events about nutrition for runners or meals for runners, because he's not a qualified nutritionist, he's a chef. So it's a really fun way of him getting to share one of his skill sets. He can be representing the running shoe company or the sports nutrition company, making snack bars using their protein powder, doing it in a really different way, and being able to then give them great content that they can use on their social media, or coming in and doing sessions with their staff on healthy eating, or being involved at a big running event that they want to promote their products to in a different way. I love what he does, love his work. So Alex Wood, the javelin thrower, who I should say wears fluorescent lycra outfits when he competes. And if you ever meet or hear Alex speaking, you'd be so surprised because he's so calm. He's like so quiet and kind of nerdy in a really sweet way. And as I said, he doesn't like social media. He goes to TAFE, and he said to me, it really annoys me about sport. They often, especially in sports organizations like institutes of sport, they assume that athletes want to go to uni. So you should either just do your sport, or you should go to university and get a degree, so when you finish your sport you can get a job. And he said he didn't want to go to university. He wanted to go to TAFE and learn a trade because that was what interested him. So we talked about it. He's quite passionate about it. And I said, are you passionate about well-being and health? And he said, yeah. I said, look, it was a mentoring program. I said, look, I don't usually like to give ideas. I like you to figure it out for yourself, but I'm just going to push you here because I just think this is so obvious. Could you go and speak to your TAFE about being an ambassador for them, going into schools and talking to kids about their options, talking to them about options other than university. And then also within that TAFE, doing some health and wellbeing activities for the other students and the staff. And he's like, really? That's it? I'm like, yeah, that's sponsorship, dude. Like, it doesn't have to be you being the face of a brand and selling stuff. It's about helping that organization do what they're trying to do, whether that's internally or whether that's, promotional, outbound stuff, getting their message out. So he went and spoke to his TAFE, and I was like, oh, maybe they'll be interested. Like, it's a good idea. It makes sense on paper. And they loved it. And he's on a paid sponsorship with them. He's an ambassador. He's doing everything he suggested. And he's super happy. And he's so surprised. I think that was the best thing. He really didn't think he was going to get sponsored. And they are the only organization he approached. So he's just going with the one sponsor and doing it really well. And it's perfect for him. Simple. So Jup, mate who likes to run stupidly long distances and always starts out a little bit chubby and unfit and ends up super fit and slim. That's what he says. So when he's not running, he's a plumber by trade, and he will work probably 3 to 6 months a year, save up lots of money, and go off and do his adventures. He gets sponsored, which pays for quite a bit of it, but it probably still costs him about, I don't know, $25,000-$30,000 each time he does a project, because there's just so much logistical stuff involved. So what he did is he approached one of the big plumbing organizations that he was a contractor for, and he said, would you like to be one of my sponsors for my next event? I can do a fundraising challenge for the charity that they support, and also get the staff involved so we can get some health and well-being happening at work. Because, okay, they're working as plumbers, but it's not necessarily a healthy lifestyle. A lot of junk food, long hours, not necessarily taking care of their bodies. So what he did was he was running the length of the width of America, and his challenge was to get all of the guys and girls from that plumbing organization to run the same amount of kilometers on a treadmill over a month. Simple, so simple. And the plumbing company loved it. It was great for their social media. It was great to show support to their charity. They were able to get some of their customers involved as well that came and did some running. And they again shared it on their social media. And Jupp did a motivational talk for all of the guys before he went across to America. He then shared his journey with them, and they were able to, the staff and the customers and the clients of this plumbing organization were able to enjoy sharing Jupp's big adventure across America. So there's the feel good as well. And you can't ignore that. That's a really important part of sponsorship. It's business, absolutely. There's got to be a value exchange. But it's great if it can be really fun and meaningful and enjoyable as well. So Squash, and that is her real name by birth. She's a beautiful, amazing woman and just does cool stuff. She has a few sponsors. So one of them is portable power supply. One is a tourism board, and the other is a outdoor clothing and equipment company. So she always gets them involved in all of her projects. She does documentaries for everything, and sometimes those documentaries end up on TV or on online channels and things. She does a lot of public speaking. So for the tourism board that she represents, she will do a few talks each year in their peak green season. So that's the summer activities, and also in the snow season or the white season. So talking about activities and adventures that tourists can do in that area. And she obviously shares her story. She does a lot of corporate speaking and speaking at schools. And that's really where she gets a lot of her income from. But the networks that she's been able to get through her sponsors is how she's got those speaking roles. It's really hard to just go and get paid speaking work. You can sign up with a bureau, like a speaking agency. That's one way. But if you're able to speak to your sponsors and say, hey, listen, I'd really love to get some more paid speaking work, it's very easy for them to promote you to their network and recommend you on a personal level. So yeah, she's been really smart about the way she's leveraged those relationships and kept those relationships going for a long time, because she's always thinking of ways that she can give back to her sponsors. Now, I cannot remember the name of this athlete. It was years ago someone told me about this, and I keep meaning to Google them. But here's the deal. This female snowboarder from Canada, very passionate about the environment, saw a documentary about Yoko Ono and John Lennon and how they did a peaceful protest from their bed back in the 70s. And she thought, I'm sponsored by a mattress company. What can I do? There's something. And she did the coolest thing. She organized for local politicians, MPs, to come and meet with her, sitting on a bed, talking about the environment and what they were going to do to commit to, saving and preserving the environment in Canada and globally, I guess. It was a big media event. what it did is it got loads and loads of exposure for that mattress company within the Calgary region. So their sales were increased like directly. It was, within the next month, they had like a 30% increase in sales. She got heaps of media coverage, and she created a social impact about something she really, really cares about. Simple. Again, this is how sponsorship works. So when you come up with an idea and you're like, oh, that's cool. Could that work? Yes. That's usually the answer. It's like, if it's a bit different, but it's simple and it makes sense, beautiful. So your greatest asset, the thing that sponsors want, is your uniqueness. So whether that's you've got a unique story, you've overcome something, or you've achieved something, or you've got something different about you. Maybe you've got a really unique message. There's something that you care about. Maybe it's gender equity. Maybe it's getting more kids active, or empowering people through an adventure sport. Or maybe it's about the environment. But also your purpose. What is it that you're trying to achieve in your life? Are you trying to be the next world champion in your sport? Are you wanting to start your own business? Are you wanting to have a great profile and be a famous athlete who's on the cover of all the magazines? I don't know. If you don't, you can figure it out. This stuff, the thing that makes you uniquely you, that is your greatest asset. That's going to be the thing that's going to help you identify what kind of sponsors you want, what you can offer to them. Do you want to offer your photography skills, your writing skills, your art skills? Do you want to get a sponsor who, gives you $10,000, and each time you go to a different city, you do a sketch and you send it to them and they auction it off for charity? I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that you can explore, and you'll be able to explore through this program that we're doing. So how do we know who you are? I mean, I could probably ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself. And you probably tell me some things, and each of you would probably tell me different stuff about you. John might tell me about his sport and his family, and Jules might tell me about her school life and her travels. So you're going to tell me different things, and that's great. That's it's a good start. But when it comes to then identifying potential sponsors and what you want to offer them and what you want to get from sponsorship, we need to start to be able to compare apples with apples. Is this athlete a good fit for this business, and vice versa? When you know the elements of who you are, when you know your brand, the things that make you who you are, then you're able to identify the same in the businesses that you're approaching, and you're able to communicate who you are and what you're about. Your brand is the impression that you make and the impact that you create. It's how people see you, and it's what you leave behind. So your brand is made up of these 7 elements. It's your behaviors. It's how you treat people. It's how you do things. It's how you speak, the words you use, the tone you use. It's your passions, the things that you really care about, deep in your heart. The stuff that that fires you up, and the stuff that, you wish you could change in the world or improve. It's your visual style. It's the colors that you wear, the kind of photos you like to share on social media. The colors that you like. It's that visual representation of you, and it can be online, it can be in person, it can be communicated in any visual way. It's the things that you're interested in. So your sport could be your passion, or it could be your interest, but it's the other stuff too. Do you like reading? Do you like traveling? Do you like photography? Do you like the idea of learning a language? Things that you're interested in can give great clues to the kind of sponsors that you might approach. Your values, your core values, the code of conduct, and the things that guide your thinking and your behaviors, and the way that you treat others and the ways that you'd like them to treat you. And of course, your image. What is it that you'd like people to think about you? What is it that you like to put out? So what impression is it that you want to make on people? And what impact do you want to leave behind? These personal brand elements, each of you have. Maybe you haven't ever thought about them in this way, or maybe you have. Maybe you're clear on some of them, and others you're like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I've never really explored that. By doing this, by identifying your unique brand, you're going to be able to begin your sponsorship journey from a really good place, from in here, from inside you. The mistake that a lot of people make with sponsorship is they quickly go outwards. They quickly go, oh, I like that brand, or I know that business, or oh, they sponsor lots of athletes. And they start by identifying the sponsors first. And then they try to fit to them, and they try to mold themselves to fit and to adapt to being what that sponsor wants. That can sometimes work, but what we found over the years is that if you start from within and you really connecting with who you are and what's important to you and what you want and why, and you start working outwards, then by the time you do start connecting with potential sponsors, there's already a reason, there's a relevance, there's a connection with who you are. And so you don't need to become somebody else. Your uniqueness has guided you to that point. Your uniqueness has helped you identify things that you can offer to a business and whether they're the right fit for you. Are your values aligned? Do you care about the same stuff? Do you kind of like the same colors? Have you got the same vibe? Are you maybe approaching a business who has a really powerful message about something that you care about? The product may not be so important. It could be, it could be tissues. I literally have a client approaching a toilet paper company, and it's got nothing to do with the coronavirus issue with toilet paper. It's relevant to something that's really important to them. And they are literally approaching a company that manufactures toilet paper. And it makes so much sense. And I think it'll be a really great fit if it happens. So this is where we're going to start. It starts with you. You have, I don't want to trivialize it, but you have everything that you need to know about your sponsorship journey already in here and in here. You already have so much knowledge. You just maybe haven't unpacked it or looked at it or considered it in relation to getting sponsored. So your first activity, you've got 2 activities to have a go at before our session next week. They're both pretty easy. The first one's the easiest. It's a tick list. So earlier on, I said that there's different areas that you can get from, you can benefit from sponsorship. The way that we've laid this table out, it's a little bit different. It talks about performance. It talks about professional and profile. It talks about personal, and it talks about passion. The reason being there's some crossover. So we've put some different categories together to make sense of these benefits. And you'll see as you go through that there's some really specific things that are going to be able to contribute to the things in that left-hand column, which essentially are your pathways as an athlete. As an athlete, you have a pathway, which is your performance. It's your sport. It's competing and training, recovery, all of that related to your sport. Then you've got your professional pathway, your education, your training, your qualifications, who you are as a person in the business world. So your professional and your profile pathway. You've got your personal pathway, your life outside of sport, your life behind the scenes with your family, with your friends, by yourself. And then there's your passion pathway. Things that you really care about, things that you strongly believe in, that you want to change or you want to contribute to in the world. A lot of athletes in the past, not so much now, thankfully, but in the past were very institutionalized. Their performance was everything. Train, rest, recover, eat, sleep, repeat. Be an athlete, that's it. Worry about life later. The problem with that is those other pathways exist. They're always there. But if you're not contributing to them and your sport ends, what have you got? Who are you if you're not doing your sport? What do you do with your life and your time if you're not doing your sport? What skills have you got? What network and experience have you got? We believe, and thankfully most sports organizations around the world believe, that an athlete needs to be active in different aspects of their life to be able to not just perform really well, because you're feeling confident, you're feeling like the rest of your life's going really great and you're being fulfilled in different ways, but to transition out of your sport. And it may be different in your sport. There may be less of an extreme transition out. But it does really help with that you are more than an athlete. You are an athlete, and you're all awesome. You guys are all elite, but there's more to you. And to be able to activate those pathways in parallel, maybe not to the same extent as your sport, but they are being activated, and you're seeking sponsors who can help you develop those skills and fulfill those interests and passions. That's going to help you get through your sport in a really good shape and pursue something after sport that's going to be fulfilling and meaningful and valuable for you. A lot of athletes end up getting employed by their sponsors, or they end up being sponsored beyond their sport, because there is more that they can offer than just being an athlete. So the second activity, this is where we get into it. Now, we are not officially doing your sponsorship plan now. This is about shifting some thinking, exploring ideas, having a go at stuff, just lightly going through this. So this is about identifying potential sponsors based on your unique brand, based on who you are. There's a video that you can click on and have a look and see how we take an athlete through the process of identifying their brand elements. So that's one of my team is actually taking a Paralympic basketballer through that process. It's really interesting. It's quite beautiful. Or you can just have a little go at it. So we've given you in your workbook that you're going to be receiving just after today's session, we've given you this table. So it does explain the brand element. On the left-hand side are the brand elements, my interests, so things that you like other than your sport. And you might put down cooking, you might put down photography, whatever you like, up to you. Just put down one or two things. Put down one if you want, it's fine. This is not about identifying your sponsors and that's it. This is about you learning a process. It's about you getting familiar and having a bit of fun with it. And, really have fun, even if it seems silly. Some of the things that you come up with, that's okay. Like I remember one of the girls that did this program a few years ago, she said, I really love getting my nails done. Like we're joking about, what do you like? And she goes, I love getting my nails done. I love sitting there and just relaxing with the massage chair and blah, 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 blah. And I said, great sponsor idea. She's like, really? I'm like, oh yeah. Like you've got a story. It's a product you already use or a service you already use. It's actually related to your sport, something you can share on social media. And, she actually approached a chain of nail bars and got sponsored by them. And some of the stuff she gave back was social media, but it was also going and working with staff on health and well-being and motivation stuff. So yeah, it can seem a little silly and strange because it's not related to your sport. That's kind of what this is about. This is shifting your thinking so that after next week's session, if you think, yeah, I'm going to give this a go, you've already given yourself this skill of thinking differently about identifying sponsors. So have a go at that activity. There's no wrong, there's no right. If you get super stuck, could you please let Jules know, and she'll let me know, and we'll have a little chat and I'll help you through it. And also feel free to connect with your the other athletes, because some of you guys might find this really easy and others might struggle. So don't be scared to reach out and support each other through this, because like I said, you're not going to be competing for the same sponsors because you're all unique and different. Okay, how's that for timing? I'm going to stop sharing. Yes, okay. Who do I want to talk to? Who am I going to put on the spot? I'll go with Jules first, just because, she won't be as freaked out about talking in front of everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Now, as a former athlete, how did that resonate with you?
Awesome. Yeah, there was some really valuable information in there, Vickie. And
Mm,
you're right. Like, to me, sponsorship isn't just about getting free stuff. It's about. I mean, I've had a relationship, and with a company that make parachutes, and it just came about because our discipline was with parachutes, and we actually hit up the owner to saying, "Do you reckon you could make us a parachute?" It was a ridiculous idea, but he made us a 5-cell parachute, and it worked. And
yeah.
we've been sponsored ever since. And now I help him out by going around the country, or I did, going around the country with demo canopies. And it just came about with a ridiculous idea that over a couple of beers.
Yeah.
And it worked. But
Yeah.
so you're exactly right. It's I mean, that was within the skydiving, but I'm sure there's so many opportunities that I think we're all looking inside when there's lots of opportunity externally.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
And it can be, local, state, or national. That's the other thing as well. Don't discount local businesses, local accounting firms or law firms, or even sometimes councils and tourism boards, like I mentioned before. That's a really good one. They have budgets for things, and also don't be scared to lose the word sponsorship. It may be partnership, it could be relationship, it could be collaboration. So I think sponsorships had a bit of a bad rap over the years, that when an athlete wants sponsorship, they're asking for a handout. And it's not the case, but it's sometimes that's the perception that people will have. But we'll talk about that a bit more next week. A lovely message from Mervyn. Thank you. You've been gripped to the screen. Decluttered message presented very well. Thank you. Yeah, I spent a bit of time just tweaking this one because I know that you guys are quite a unique group of athletes. So I want to really make sure that I'm speaking to things that are important to you. So on that, we are about to finish. But if there are any questions that you have, or anything that I said that didn't make sense, or I'm missing something that you'd like to hear about, please let me know and I'll be able to include it for next session. Next session, we're going to be talking more about the process, about how to approach sponsors, what to offer, how to put it together. And then after that, you're going to have the choice to continue on with us in our online learning environment, where you will be able to put together a proposal, and you'll be able to go through that process of identifying what you can offer and who your sponsors are. And then, joining the final Q&A session to put it all together. I think that's all from me for today. Thank you guys so much. I actually look forward to chatting a little bit in that Q&A session and finding out more about you guys, but do feel free to get in touch via Jules. Jules, you can give them my email address, that's fine. So any questions, any ideas, very happy to hear it. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Vickie. Thanks for your time. I know there's some people here who have already, who've been sponsored in the past. And I don't know if people want to stay on and just talk. I don't know if you have time for any questions now.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going running in about 6 minutes.
Oh, okay. But if any of you guys have any questions now that you want to shoot to Vickie, whether you just want to put it in the group chat.
Yeah, that'd be
or
great.
Share any stories. I see Jeff and Tish.
I was going to ask if, as well, with the online thing, is just being able to maintain sponsorships as well. Because I've got a few, and just want to be able to keep that relationship fresh. And just if you could go over stuff like that, that would be epic.
Yeah, definitely. And I can just quickly speak to that now. So maintaining the relationship, exactly what you just said, keeping it fresh. So sometimes doing something different. If you're used to just emailing them, pick up the phone or send them something, in the post. And also, from time to time, come back to them with some different ideas of things that you can offer, and maybe just do something that they're not expecting. Yeah. Kind of like a, romantic relationship. Like send them flowers, make them a cake. No, that kind of thing. That same, I think I said this once at a conference. I was really jet lagged and I couldn't remember my speech. and I just winged it. And I think it was one of my best speeches. And I talked about how sponsorship is love. I was really jet lagged. Sponsorship is love. And if you use all the elements of love in your sponsorship, it will be a great relationship. Honesty, communication, care, thoughtfulness, creativeness, selflessness, but also making sure your needs are met. Yeah. Okay, so anyone else have a question? I think I've got a couple. Oh, someone's going to send through. Kate, you're going to send through questions. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I think everyone might be shy.
I know.
Well,
I know.
you've given us so much information, and great to have some homework too. I really appreciate that. I hope everyone gets a lot out of this session. So thanks again, Vickie, for joining us. And like Vickie said, everyone, thank you for coming, and send through any questions or ideas that you have to me, and I can pass them on to Vickie, or I can pass on Vickie's email to you.
Yeah, either or. I'm happy with that. Look, with the homework activities, just give them a go. Don't worry about getting them perfect. Just give them a go. Probably would take about total less than an hour. Definitely less than an hour. So yeah, be good. Be worth it. Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Vickie. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks. See ya.
See you, everyone.